The next sutta is 8.2.20. Once the Exalted One was dwelling near Savatthi in Eastern Park at the terrace house of Nigara's mother. Now at that time the Exalted One was seated surrounded by monks of the Sangha, it being the Uposatha day. Just stop for a moment. The Uposatha day is the day, the 8th day of the lunar month, the 15th day, 23rd day, and the last day of the lunar month. And on these days, the people in India would keep the 8 precepts. And on 2 of these days, on the 15th and the last day of the lunar calendar, the monks will assemble to recite the Patimokkha, the precepts, the code of precepts of the monks. Then the sutta continues. Then the Venerable Ananda, when the night was far spent and the first watch was gone by, arose from his seat and placing his upper robe over one shoulder, bent his hands to the Exalted One and said, Lord, the night is far spent, the first watch is gone by, and long have the monks of the Sangha been seated. Lord, let the Exalted One recite the Patimokkha to the monks. Thus spoke the Venerable Ananda, but the Exalted One remained silent. I stop here for a moment. From this sutta, we can realize that in the initial days of the Sangha, the Buddha used to recite. The Buddha was the one who recited the Patimokkha to the monks. And we can see from this sutta later why the Buddha stopped reciting. And later the Buddha asked the senior-most monk among the Sangha. It was the duty of the senior-most monk to recite the Patimokkha. But sometimes when the senior-most monk did not want to recite, he will nominate another monk to recite, to chant the Patimokkha. And here the first watch had ended, and the Buddha had still not recited the Patimokkha. The first watch is from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and the Buddha had still not recited the Patimokkha. That was why the Venerable Ananda reminded the Buddha to recite the Patimokkha, but the Buddha kept quiet. And the sutta continues. And the Venerable Ananda, when the night was far spent and the middle watch was gone by, arose from his seat a second time and bent his hands to the Exalted One and said, Lord, the night is far spent, the middle watch is gone by, and long have the monks been seated. Lord, let the Exalted One recite the Patimokkha to the monks. A second time even the Exalted One remained silent. I'll stop for a moment to comment that the middle watch is from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m. So up to 2 a.m. the monks were seated and still the Buddha did not recite. The third watch is from 2 a.m. until 6 a.m. And then the sutta continues. Then when the night was past, when the last watch was gone by, that means the third watch was gone by, when the sun was getting up, gladdening the face of night, a third time the Venerable Ananda arose from his seat and said to the Exalted One, Lord, the night is past, the last watch is gone by, and the sun rises and the face of night brightens. Lord, long have the monks been sitting. Let the Exalted One recite the Patimokkha to the monks. And the Buddha said, Ananda, the assembly is not pure. Then the Venerable Maha thought, of what person, I wonder, does the Exalted One say, the assembly, Ananda, is not pure? And he fixed his thought intently upon all the monks of the Sangha there, encompassing their minds with his. Now the Venerable Maha saw a person seated in the midst of the monks, who was wicked, evil, unclean, of suspicious conduct, full of secret actions, no recluse, though vowed thereto, unchaste, though vowed to chastity, rotten to the core, lustful and vile. And rising from his seat, he approached him and said, Get up, sir, the Exalted One has seen you. For you there is no fellowship with the monks. But when he had thus spoken, that person remained silent. The second time he addressed him in like manner, and the second time the person was silent. A third time he said, "Get up, sir. The Exalted One has seen you. There is no fellowship for you with the monks." But a third time that person was silent. At that, the Venerable Maha Moggallana seized the man by the arm and thrust him outside the porch and bolted the door. Then the Venerable Maha Moggallana went to the Exalted One and said, "Lord, that person has been expelled by me. The assembly is pure. Lord, let the Exalted One recite the Patimokkha." And the Buddha said, "It is very strange, Moggallana, that foolish person should have waited till he was seized by the arm." Then spoke the Exalted One to the monks, saying, "Now, monks, may you keep the Uposatha. Now may you recite the Patimokkha. Henceforth, from today, I shall not recite the Patimokkha. For it is impossible, monks, nor can it happen that the Tathagata should recite the Patimokkha to an assembly which is not perfectly pure." That's the end of the sutta. So, we can see in the earliest days of the Sangha, the Buddha recited the Patimokkha for the monks. But later, as more and more monks ordained, many of them, the earliest monks were ordained, personally ordained by the Buddha. But as more and more people joined the Sangha, then it became impossible for the Buddha to ordain everybody. So he allowed his disciples to ordain other disciples. And when that happened, many unsincere people joined the Sangha, shameless people, just like this one. You can see this person was so shameless, even though the Buddha could read his mind and probably knew that the Buddha recognized him as a shameless monk, and still he refused to leave the assembly. And even when the Maha Moggallana came to ask him to leave, he still refused to leave. Even after 3 times, and Venerable Maha Moggallana had to catch him by the arm and throw him outside the door. And we see also in another sutta later, in the Anguttara Nikaya, in one of the later suttas, the Arahant Mahakassapa was asked by the Buddha to teach Dhamma to the monks, and Mahakassapa also knew that there were a lot of insincere monks in the assembly, and he refused to teach Dhamma to the monks, and he told the Buddha the reason, and the Buddha agreed with him. You notice here, after the rotten monk was thrown outside the porch, the Venerable Maha Moggallana bolted the door. And in the earliest days, the Patimokkha, the precepts used to be recited in the kuti, or the hut of the senior-most monk. And the Sangha consisted of all monks in the boundary of Sima. And in the earliest days, the boundary of Sima used to be a very large area. But because of rotten monks like these, the Sima, the boundary became smaller and smaller to exclude these rotten monks. Until nowadays, the boundary or the Sima consists of just a building, a hall, a building, so that when the monks are assembled in the Sima hall, then only those monks inside the Sima hall are considered to be part of the Sangha. And the next sutta is 8.3.21. Once the Exalted One was dwelling in the gable hall in Mahavana near Vesali. There the Exalted One addressed the monks, saying, "Monks." "Yes, Lord," they replied. And the Exalted One said, "Hold it true, monks, that Ugga, the householder of Vesali, is possessed of 8 wonderful and marvelous qualities." Thus spoke the Exalted One, And thereafter, rising from his seat, the wayfarer entered the dwelling. Now a certain monk, robing himself early in the morning, taking bowl and cloak, went to the house of Ugga, the householder, and there sat down on a seat made ready for him. And Ugga of Vesali approached that monk, saluted him, and sat down at one side. Then said that monk to Ugga, "It has been declared by the Exalted One that you, householder, are possessed of 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities. What are those 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities, householder, of which you are declared by the Exalted One to be possessed?" And Ugga said, "No, Reverend Sir, I know not of what 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities I am declared by the Exalted One to be possessed. But as to the 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities found in me, listen, lend an ear, and I will tell you." "Very well, householder," replied the monk. And Ugga said, "When I first saw the Exalted One, even a long way off, my heart, sir, at the mere sight of him became tranquil. This is the first marvelous and wonderful quality found in me. Then with tranquil heart, I drew near and reverenced the Exalted One. And to me he preached a graduated discourse, that is to say, on almsgiving, on virtue, on heaven. He set forth the peril, the folly, the depravity of lusts, and the advantages of renunciation. And when the Exalted One knew that my heart was clear, malleable, free from hindrance, uplifted, lucid, then he revealed to me that Dhamma teaching to which Buddhas alone have won, namely dukkha, its arising, its ending, and the way to its ending. Just as a clean cloth, free of all stain, will take dye perfectly, even so, as I sat there arose within me the spotless, stainless Dhamma sight, that whatsoever is conditioned by coming to be, all subject to ending. I, sir, saw Dhamma, possessed Dhamma, found Dhamma, penetrated Dhamma, overcame doubt, surpassed uncertainty, possessed without another's aid, perfect confidence in the word of the teacher, and there and then took refuge in the Buddha, in Dhamma, and in the Sangha, and embraced the 5 rules of training in the holy life. This, sir, is the second quality. Now, sir, I had 4 wives, young girls, and I went and spoke to them thus: Sisters, I have embraced the 5 rules of training in the holy life. Who wishes may enjoy the wealth of this place. All may do deeds of merit. All may go to her own relations and family. Or is there some man you desire to whom I may give you? And when I had stopped speaking, the eldest wife said to me, Sir, give me to such and such a man. Then I had that man sent for, and taking my wife by the left hand, and holding the water pot in my right, I cleansed that man by an act of dedication. Yet I was not a whit discomfited at parting with my wife. This, sir, is the third quality. Moreover, sir, there is wealth in my family, but among the good and lovely in character, it is shared impartially. This, sir, is the fourth quality. And when I wait upon a monk, sir, I serve him respectfully and not without deference. That is, without respect. This, sir, is the fifth quality. If, sir, the reverend monk preach Dhamma to me, I listen attentively and not listlessly. If he preach not Dhamma to me, I preach Dhamma to him. This, sir, is the sixth quality. Furthermore, sir, it is not uncommon for devas to come and declare to me, Perfectly, O householder, is Dhamma proclaimed by the Exalted One. When they speak thus, I reply, Ho, you devas, whether you declare so or not, Dhamma is perfectly proclaimed by the Exalted One. Yet, sir, I feel no elation because of such thoughts as, it is to me these devas come. I am the man who talks to devas. This, sir, is the seventh quality. Of those 5 lower fetters, sir, declared by the Exalted One, I see no remnant whatsoever within me, This, sir, is the eighth marvelous and wonderful quality found in me. These, sir, are the 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities found in me, but I do not know of what 8 I am declared by the Exalted One to be possessed. Then that monk, after taking alms at Ugga's house, rose from his seat and departed. And when he had eaten his meal, after his alms round, he went to the Exalted One, and saluting him, stood at one side. So standing, he told the Exalted One of all his conversation with Ugga, the householder of Vesali. And the Exalted One said, well done, monk. As Ugga, the householder of Vesali, in explaining the matter rightly should explain, even so, monks, he is declared by me to be possessed of those 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities. Moreover, monk, hold it true that Ugga, the householder of Vesali, is so possessed. That's the end of the sutta. It's quite an interesting sutta. In the days of the Buddha, you had such good lay persons like Ugga. Because of past life, the moment he saw the Buddha, his heart became tranquil. The last quality the Ugga says is that those 5 lower fetters are no more in him. In other words, Ugga was an anagami, non-returner, third fruition person who has perfect sila and samadhi. And you notice when the monk came to see Ugga, it is stated here, and Ugga of Vesali approached that monk, saluted him and sat down at one side. In other words, this lay person, even though he is a third fruition person, an anagamin, he pays respect to the monk. He does not think, oh, I am an Arya, I am higher than the monk, I don't need to pay respect. Because during the Buddha's days, they took refuge with the Bhikkhu Sangha, and because the monk wears the robe, even though he is anagamin, he still pays respect. The word abhivadetava, saluted, that means paid homage to the monk. You notice that after he understood the Dhamma, he wanted to practice the spiritual path and keep the 5 precepts. He told his 4 young wives that he wanted to practice the holy life. And one of them wanted to marry another man, and he just gave away his wife. And then he says that he has wealth in his family, but those who are of good character, he shares with them just like his brother. He shares with them impartially. That means he gave wealth to whatever virtuous person needed it. And then when he serves a monk, he serves him respectfully. And then if the monk teaches Dhamma, he listens very attentively. If the monk comes to his house and does not preach Dhamma to him, then he preaches Dhamma to the monk. He's so capable. And devas used to come and talk to him. So that those are the wonderful qualities of the Ugga. The next sutta, I don't know whether I can finish. Once the Exalted One was dwelling at Hattigama among the Vajjans. There he addressed the monks and said, hold it true, monks, that Ugga, the householder of Hattigama, is possessed of 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities. And when the wayfarer had thus spoken, he entered the dwelling. Then, as in the preceding sutta, a monk went and asked Ugga about those qualities. And then said Ugga, the householder of Hattigama, when, sir, I was sporting in Naga glade, I saw the Exalted One a good way off, and at the sight of him, my mind became tranquil, and my drunkenness vanished. This is the first marvelous and wonderful quality. The second, third, fourth, and fifth qualities are as in the previous sutta. It is nothing wonderful for devas to come and tell me when I have invited the Sangha that such a one is freed both ways, that he is wisdom freed, that he is a body witness, that he is a view attainer, that he is faith freed, that he is a Dhamma follower, that he is a faith follower, that he is virtuous and lovely in character, or that such a one is wicked and evil in character. But sir, while I wait on the Sangha, I had no such thoughts as to him I will give little, to him I will give much. Rather, sir, I give impartially. This is the sixth quality. The seventh is the same as in the previous sutta. Moreover, sir, if I should die before the Exalted One, that would not be very wonderful, but that the Exalted One should declare of me that there is no fetter fettered by which Ugga, the householder of Hatthigama, shall come again to this world. This, sir, is the eighth marvelous and wonderful quality found in me. Indeed, sir, these are the eight, but I know not of what eight I am declared by the Exalted One to be possessed. Then, as in the preceding sutta, the monk goes and tells the Exalted One of this conversation, who declares that these are just those to which he referred. That's the end of the sutta. So this sutta is a little similar to the previous one, but there are a few qualities of this householder which is quite wonderful. The first one, he was actually drunk. He was enjoying himself in the gardens, the botanical gardens, and he was drunk already. But when he saw the Buddha, his mind became tranquil and his drunkenness vanished. This is quite a wonderful thing, and it shows, to me, implies that this person had cultivated strong samadhi in his previous life. And because of having cultivated strong samadhi in this life, when he saw the Buddha, something reminded him that this person was very familiar to him, and his mind became one-pointed. His mind became one-pointed, and his drunkenness just vanished. And then the other qualities that the devas used to come and tell him that such a person was an Arya or an evil person, etc. And then when he gives to the monks, he does not think, this monk I will give little, that monk I will give much. He gives impartially to the monks because he thinks he's supporting the Sangha, he's not supporting a particular monk. And then this person is also anagami. So these are the wonderful qualities of this Ugga, the householder of Hatthigama. There are other suttas concerning other wonderful lay persons, and we will talk about it in the next talk. The last two suttas we were talking about the laymen disciples of the Buddha who are anagamis. Now we come to another one, Sutta 8.3.23. Once the Exalted One was staying at Alavi, at Agalava, near the shrine there. Then he addressed the monks, saying, "Hold it true, monks, that Hatthaka of Alavi is endowed with 7 marvelous and wonderful qualities." With what 7? Monks, Hatthaka of Alavi has faith, is virtuous, is conscientious, fears blame, is a great listener, is charitable and wise. Hold it true, monks, that Hatthaka is so endowed. Thus spoke the Exalted One, and arising from his seat, the well-farer entered the dwelling. Then a monk went to Hatthaka's house that the Exalted One had said, and Hatthaka said, "I trust, sir, there were no white-robed laymen present." "No, indeed, friend, there were none such there." "It is well, sir." Then after he returned from his alms round, the monk went and told the Exalted One all that had happened. And the Exalted One said, well done, monk. The clansman is modest. He does not wish his good qualities to be known to others. Hold it true, monk, that Hatthaka of Alavi is endowed with this eighth wonderful and marvelous quality, namely modesty. And the next sutta, 8.3.24. Once, while the Exalted One was dwelling in Alavi at Agalava, near the shrine there, Hatthaka, surrounded by 500 lay disciples, came and saluted and sat down at one side. And the Exalted One said to him, seated there, "This following of yours, Hatthaka, is very large. How do you manage to gather it together?" And he said, "Lord, it is by those 4 bases of gatherings which have been declared by the Exalted One that I gather this following together. Lord, when I realize that this man may be enlisted by a gift, I enlist him in this way. When by a kindly word, then in that way. When by a good turn, then so. Or when I know that he must be treated as an equal, if he is to be enlisted, then I enlist him by equality of treatment. Moreover, Lord, there is wealth in my family, and they know that such is not rumored of a poor man." And the Buddha said, well done, Hatthaka. This is just the way to gather together a large following. Whosoever in the past gathered together a large following did so on these 4 bases. Likewise, whosoever shall do so in the future, yes, whosoever now gathers a following together, gathers it on these 4 bases. Then Hatthaka of Alavi, being instructed, stimulated, aroused and gladdened by the Exalted One's Dhamma discourse, rose from his seat, saluted him and departed, passing him by on his right. Now not long after the departure of Hatthaka, the Exalted One addressed the monks, saying, "Hold it true, monks, that Hatthaka of Alavi is endowed with 8 marvelous and wonderful qualities." What 8? Monks, Hatthaka of Alavi has faith. Hatthaka of Alavi is virtuous. Hatthaka of Alavi is conscientious. Hatthaka of Alavi has a sense of remorse. Hatthaka of Alavi is a great listener. Hatthaka of Alavi is charitable. Hatthaka of Alavi is wise. Hatthaka of Alavi is modest. Monks, hold it true that Hatthaka is so endowed. It's the end of the sutta. This Hatthaka of Alavi is another one quite well-known disciple, lay disciple of the Buddha, and also supposed to be an anagami, the fruition Arya. The next sutta is 8.3.25. It's quite a good sutta. Once the Exalted One dwelt among the Sakyans in Banyan Tree Park at Kapilavatthu. There Mahanama, the Sakyan, came and visited him, and after saluting sat down at one side. There, addressing the Exalted One, he said, "Lord, how becomes a man a lay disciple?" And the Buddha answered, "When Mahanama, he has found refuge in the Buddha, found refuge in the Dhamma, found refuge in the Sangha, then he is a lay disciple." Lord, how is a lay disciple virtuous? When Mahanama, a lay disciple, abstains from taking life, abstains from taking what is not given to him, abstains from lustful and evil conduct, abstains from lying, and abstains from spirits and intoxicants, the cause of indolence, then a lay disciple is virtuous. Lord, how does a lay disciple help on his own welfare, but not that of another? When Mahanama, he has achieved faith for himself, but strives not to compass faith in another, has achieved virtue for self, but strives not to compass virtue in another, has achieved himself renunciation, but strives not to compass renunciation in another, longs himself to see the monks, but strives not for this sight for another, longs himself to hear Sat Dhamma or true Dhamma, but strives not for this hearing for another, is mindful himself of Dhamma he has heard, but strives not that another should be mindful of it, reflects himself upon the meaning of Dhamma he is mindful of, but strives not for another to reflect thereon. When he knows himself both the letter and the spirit of Dhamma, and walks in conformity therewith, but strives not for another so to walk, then a lay disciple helps on his own welfare, but not that of another. And how, Lord, does a lay disciple help on both his own welfare and the welfare of another? When indeed Mahanama, he has achieved faith himself and strives to compass faith in another, has achieved virtue himself and strives to compass virtue in another, renunciation, longs to see the monks, to hear Sat Dhamma, is mindful, reflects. When he knows both the letter and the spirit of Dhamma and walks in conformity therewith, and strives to make another so to walk, then Mahanama, a lay disciple, helps on his own welfare and the welfare of another. It's the end of the sutta. This sutta is quite important because here it gives a definition of a lay disciple. A lay disciple is one who has taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And you just have to take refuge on your own, and you are already considered a lay disciple. It's only nowadays, sometimes there is a ceremony, but there don't need to be a ceremony. If you on your own, in your own heart, take refuge with the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, then you are already a lay disciple. And a lay disciple is virtuous by keeping the 5 precepts. So the 5 precepts are the practice of a lay disciple. And then a lay disciple helps himself if he achieves these few things. He has faith, has virtue, practices renunciation, he hears the true Dhamma, Sat Dhamma, which means the discourses, the original discourses of the Buddha, and he is mindful of Dhamma. He reflects upon the meaning of Dhamma that he has heard, and then knowing both the letter and the spirit of Dhamma, he walks in conformity therewith. And if he practices all these things, then he is helping himself. But if he practices these things and tries to help others to practice these things, then he not only benefits himself, but benefits others. That's why in one of the suttas, the Buddha said, those people that you love, those who are near and dear to you, especially your family members, it is good to bring them to have faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. That way you will benefit them a lot. And also, if you hope to meet them in the future life, it is also important to bring them to have faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, because the Buddha said, if 2 persons are to meet together in the next life, 4 things should be the same. One is faith, another one is conduct, moral conduct, that means equally virtuous or equally evil. And the third one is charity, equally generous or equally selfish. Then the fourth one is wisdom, equally wise or equally foolish. So if we bring our near and dear relatives and friends to have faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha and practice like we practice, then the chances of meeting them together in the next life would be better.